Welcome back to another amazing lesson in Advanced Excel. I'll be dividing this section into two parts. First, I'll teach you how to summarize values. Then secondly, I'll be filling in some of the gaps in your knowledge about pivot tables. Because when I first started teaching about pivot tables, I kind of rushed through it. I kind of gave you just what you needed to get started so you can get your hands dirty. But now I'll be filling in some of the gaps. I'll be talking more about this Analyze tab up here. I'll be talking about some of the other features that'll come in really handy. So without further ado, let's get started. So to access the summarized values, go ahead and right-click anywhere on your pivot table and go to Summarize Values By. And of course, by default, it's usually by sum. But now let's go to Count. So now all these values here are all on a count formula. So now it's saying, okay, with Bugs Bunny, how many orders did Angela sell? And the answer is 8. All right, let's go ahead and unhide our field list so we can see. Let's go ahead and use Kevin as an example. Let's go with Tweety Bird. I want to show you this, how it looks in the unclean data. So we have Kevin, we have Tweety Bird. So here's basically what the pivot table is doing. I'm going to walk you step by step to what the process is. So Kevin with Tweety Bird, let's go to our unclean data. Let's filter by Tweety Bird. Salesperson would be Kevin. So the count is 5. So how many orders? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And by the way, if you make a selection, down here at the right corner we have count as 5, we have the sum, which is 77, we have the average, which is 15.4. So let's see how that stacks in our pivot table. All right, let's go ahead and rename this to pivot. So Tweety Bird 5. It's just like we said, the count is 5. Let's summarize the values by sum, which is 77. Our unclean data, sure enough, 77. The average should be 15.4. For the average, 15.4. Now for these numbers, just like any other data, you can select them. You can press Control 1 to go to Format Cells. You can go to Number. You can change this decimal place. Let's go 1. There we go. Now let's go to Summarize Values. You can go, of course, the min, the max. Let's take our Tweety Bird, Kevin, 34 is the max. 14 to 24, sorry, 14 to 22, 5, 34. Yep, there it is. 34 is the max. And of course, for good measure, let's go minimum. Tweety Bird, Kevin, 2. And 2 is the minimum. Now for the last one, it is product. These are really big numbers. Now when it says product, it's not talking about this product over here, which by the way, you can rename these. Well, let's go ahead and rename this to product. Delete that. Enter. So you can rename any one of these over here. But let's go with, what is Tweety Bird? Where's Kevin? There it is. So the product, what this is doing, it's multiplying all the numbers that it has. So this is 104,720. So on the unclean data, we can go equals product, which says multiplies all the numbers given as arguments. So we can either use our product and select these, or to show you what's going on in a more basic way, we could say equals if this times this times this times this times this, and enter. 104,720. Perfect. I personally, I don't think I've ever really used product before, but you might in the future. All right. Let's go back to sum. There we go. First, let's go ahead and delete this. Let's press Control minus. All right, so now let's get into the pivot table tips. Let's go to the Analyze tab. Now, one thing to know about pivot tables that are different than many other kind of cells or data sets or tables, and that is you have to refresh it. So let's say, go to our unclean data. Let's go ahead and unfilter some of these. So now we're just looking at Kevin. Go ahead and select just Kevin. Actually, let's go with the number of orders. I'm going to delete those. Go ahead and unfilter. There we go. We still got orders, but everything from Kevin has been deleted. Now let's go to our pivot. Now right here, it hasn't changed anything. You might think, wait, if you change the unclean data, shouldn't it change this? Well, not immediately. But if we click refresh, now it's changed. Now all of Kevin's data has been deleted. Let's go back here. Let's press Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. There we go. We kind of undid that. Back here. So there's a couple ways to refresh it. Of course, we can go to your Analyze tab. You can click Refresh. You can click the little drop-down menu, which says Refresh All. I said, well, what is that? And what that does, if you have multiple pivot tables pulling from different places, then you can click the Refresh All. It'll refresh everything. But if you only have one pivot table, the way I like to do it is by right-clicking it and going to Refresh. Of course, I believe you can click Alt-5, or Alt-F5, sorry. You can go to Change Data Source. So you can click on it, and it says right now it's referencing the order table. So you can change that if you want. Not going to do any of that. You can also use Group. Go to Analyze. You can use Group. So if I select some, you can use Group or Ungroup. You might say, now what is that? Why would you need that? Well, usually the way I like to group things is I like to go to my data. I like to group things here, right in my unclean data. So right now it's already grouped by whatever city it is. You could group by salesperson, those kind of things. So I try to have as many groups as I can. But if I want to make a quick group, let's say your boss comes up to you and says, I want a few of these to be on sale. So let's say he says, okay, I want Bugs Bunny, Speedy Gonzales, Duck Dodgers, and let's say Sylvester. So you can click on Sylvester, you can click it, drag up. And what happened? That didn't work. Hang on. Click, drag up. There we go. Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Duck Dodgers, Sylvester. Very good. So let's say he wanted these on sale. So how could we do that in our pivot table? Well, very quickly, you could highlight these, go to your Analyze, and click Group Selection. Automatically, it gave it a wonderful name called Group 1. Isn't that great? Well, just click on it, and you can start typing. Let's call it on sale. And for the rest of these, we'll put it in a different group. So I'm going to click all this, because by default, it made each one of these individual things its own separate group. Let's go ahead and Group Selection. And Group 2, let's call it Regular Price. Now very quickly, we have two separate groups. Of course, you can make as many groups as you want, but if you minimize this, it gives you all your totals. Isn't that cool? You can ungroup it. So for Angela, we have these numbers. Let's go with equals sum. Let's go ahead and select these. Enter. So 525. Let's check it. Yep, 525. Let's delete that. Let's go to our options. Let's see what our options are. Well, sometimes what I like to do is, it says for empty cells, show what? Well, for this, if there's something blank, you might want to make it stand out some way. We could put stars or something like that. Let's put nothing. Enter. And look at that. Looks like Tree didn't sell anything for Foghorn Leghorn. So it showed up as nothing. Go to options. Let's go ahead and delete that. There we go. Go to options. You can change it to where if there's an error value, show as whatever. Tools and filter. Offer totals, grand totals. It's the same as going to the design tab and changing it there. It's just a different way. I don't really mess with the display options. Printing. Repeat row labels for each printed page. Yeah, if you have a lot of rows going down, and if it's multiple pages, you might want to keep that checked. Data. Refresh the data when opening the file. That'd be a good one to do. Alright, but there's also one last thing I want to show you. So imagine if your boss came to you. Your boss comes to you a lot, doesn't he? But imagine if your boss came to you and said, I want to filter all of this by, let's say, city. Say, okay, so you can scroll up. So now we can filter all this by whatever city we want. And he says, I want you to print out each individual filter on a separate page. I say, okay, so let's go to filter. You can go to Anaheim. Click. So here's all the data here. It's like Daffy Duck didn't sell any, Duck Dodger, Sylvester, all those. Okay, so you print that. Then you go up here and you click Bakersfield. Okay, then you print that. You go over here to Berkeley. Then you print that. That would take a little while, especially if you have a lot of filters. Imagine doing this by full name. Actually, let's do that. Let's get rid of this filter. Go to full name. Okay. Let's say he wants a different list. He wants to print it out and he wants to give it to all the customers to show them what orders they've made. Well, it's about 80 of them, so that's going to keep you busy for a while, right? Now, right now I'm going to press Control S for Control Save, because in a minute I'm going to do something, and just in case I'm not able to undo it, I want to save it now. So let's see. So instead of doing it this long way, what you could do is, now that you have a filter, you can go to Options and go to Show Report Filter Pages. Watch what happens when there's nothing in the filter. You go to Options, and it's not there. It's grayed out. But we put it back. Let's say full name. You can go to Show Report Filter Pages. Now watch what happens at the bottom for the worksheets. Click it. Full name, and OK. It's thinking. And look at that. At the bottom, each individual filter has already been set up. So basically it's copied this pivot table, it's put it on another sheet, and it's made a different filter by that name. I can press Control, page down, 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 down. And then you can just go to File, Print. Then you can print out all the worksheets, and then you're done. Now that could save you a lot of work in the long run. So that's one way of doing that. I remember working at a temp agency and they had me do something similar to this, and I remember wasting so much time, and after I learned this I thought, oh, if only I knew. Well, now you know. So now you can impress your boss. They can say, well, you're going to have to filter all this and print it out, and you can be done in about 5 minutes after it's all done printing. So here it is. How did you get it done so fast? And you say, magic. Hope this was helpful, and I'll see you again in the next lesson.